Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, I have with me the incredible Sara, who actually was my very first interview when I started working at a doula agency in Portland, Oregon, back in 2021. And we matched, and you were my very first interview. You weren't the first birth, but you were the first literally people I had on the other side of the screen to interview with. So yeah, it was such an amazing experience to be chosen as your doula. And I would just love for you to introduce yourself. Who are you? And I can't wait to talk all things about your birth today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am Sara O'Donnell. Who am I? That's a big question. I'm obviously a mom. She is now 4 years old, which is wild to think about that we met like over 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an occupational therapist. I'm actually working on getting my drug and alcohol counselor license in the moment too. Yep. So I've been working as a manager of a mental health and drug and alcohol unit in a prison for the past year and a half, and like absolutely love that population. Love yoga, love meditation. Like I told you before, 2025 has been a dumpster fire, so I've been collecting tattoos more and more this year to like a form of like some therapy on top of going to therapy. Yeah, just kind of trying to find my way in this messy life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, love it. And I that's so inspirational that you're doing that kind of work. I love that, that you love it too, because that passion, when you find that, especially as an occupational therapist, I mean, I can only imagine like how rewarding it must be. Well, yeah, let's just hop right in, because I feel like there's so much to talk about that's going on in your life right now, but also if you can take me back to how did the journey to even wanting a baby or feeling like, oh, now's the time, or yeah, how did that all look?
Yeah. I would consider myself to be a situational breeder. Like it was very much like whatever partner I was with, like if you wanted a baby, like cool, I would have a baby too. If you didn't want a baby, like I could be open to not having a baby as well. Like it is what it is kind of thing. I personally never had like the drive or the burning urge or anything that like I have to be a mom. Like I never had that. I know some people kind of like connect with like I just want to be a mom. I just want to have that experience. Like I never was like that is like a non-negotiable in my life. So Brian and I were married, getting to the point where we wanted to have a house, and then it was like one of these things where it's like, well, okay, like we wanted time to ourselves. We wanted time within our marriage and within our relationship to be able to just kind of like experience each other first before we brought a kid into the world. And we had always been like tinkering around the idea of kind of like having a kid. And then it just like essentially with COVID too, it was just like, well, there's really nothing else to do. Like, is now the time, now that the world's on fire and like everyone's locked into their house? Like, why not smash it out every single day and see if you can get pregnant? So it worked with our timing. He was done with grad school. And so it was one of those things where like, you know what, we're just gonna try. And then of course, within like 1 month, we were pregnant.
Amy's like, I'm coming.
Right, exactly. And I've like conveniently, we had just adopted a dog the same month too. So I'm just like, okay, cool. Cool. We're just gonna get thrown into like the master's program of caring for things.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
It was an interesting time, COVID, that's for sure. And, being a doula as well, because they had just started in 2021, at least allowing doulas back into labor and delivery, which was also like, because they were changing the guidelines every other month. And like, you can have a doula, you can't have a doula. You like, it was such, So how was pregnancy? Like being in that world of the world on fire and going through pregnancy? How'd you feel?
I loved being pregnant.
Mhm.
Absolutely loved being pregnant. The first trimester I had a lot of like protein aversion, which is weird because like I love meat, and my partner could cook the hell out of some chicken wings, and I would love chicken wings. And I remember he just made this like massive plate of them, and I just looked at them and I was like about to hurl, and I was like, I can't do this. Like
Oh my
this is not my
God.
jam. Um, like I never have heartburn, and I had a lot of heartburn during my first and second trimesters too, which I just ate ice cream because ice cream was way more effective and way more enjoyable than like taking a Tums or like Pepsi or anything like that. So why not eat ice cream every single day? Um,
Mhm.
but I remember just like being in awe of my body for like the first time in my life of like, look at how amazing this is, and just feeling like amped that like I had the ability to like carry something, and that I had the ability to like provide for something. Um, I never realized that I just wanted all of my pants to go up to my titties. Like maternity pants are the shit. Like I want to wear them constantly now, even. Um, Emmy was like tucked in with her booty underneath my rib cage like for forever, and she would like even when she was born she would sleep with like her butt up in the air. So I'm like, okay, that's how she was kind of like tucked into me too. But like she wouldn't move around a lot, but she would spin, and she would just kind of flip and spin and spin. And so I'd be in the middle of sessions with clients and I could just feel her like mm, mm. And then I was like, okay. um but no, I absolutely loved it.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so funny. It's funny how they have like a personality already in the womb.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, okay, so your pregnancy, you had some aversions. It was overall a good pregnancy. What
Mhm.
was through your mind when you were deciding like we should get a doula? Where am I going to give birth? Were there any things coming up for you in terms of those things?
I had a friend who had a kid before us, and she had a doula. And I was like, walk me through kind of like what that process is, because like I don't know anyone before her who actually had a doula. And talking with my mom, it was like I was a C-section. My sister was like, my mom had VBAC with my sister, and then she was like, she just slipped out, like didn't really like say anything else other than that. So I was like, okay, like not getting a lot of information there. Thanks, mom. So I talked to my friend, and she was like, it was actually like she really wanted a home birth, but she had I can't remember where the placenta starts to rip away from the lining of the uterus and causing bleeding.
Oh, like placenta previa or
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So she had to be induced early, and so she didn't get to have like the natural home birth that she wanted because of that. Um, but she was talking about like having a doula. She was talking about just like the support that they could provide, especially with like her husband, especially with like pain management because she wanted to have like a natural birth. And so she ended up getting pregnant a couple months before us. And then she was talking about how they were going to go through the same doula company, but then they were going to have like a doula for like the older kid, so that Greta had someone with her during the birth, and that the midwives that they like partnered with and stuff like that too. And it just felt a lot more holistic and supportive. And it was one of those things where it's like, I've never done this before. Brian's never done this before. Like, I hadn't even been present like in a room with someone giving birth before that. Like, I had been there when my sister was going through labor a little bit, but like not during her actually like full on in labor giving birth kind of stuff. So it was just a very like uncharted territory for me. And I was like, well, why wouldn't you want someone who's experienced this and has knowledge in all of this, to kind of guide us together versus like me being like a demanding partner on my husband at the time and just being like, you will do this for me. Because he's not medical minded at all. So it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, like I won't necessarily have the capacity to advocate for myself in that moment. And that's a lot of pressure to put on him to be able to have him anticipate what I need in that moment, but not actually have the background knowledge and like the medical knowledge and stuff like that. So it's like, why not get someone who has that knowledge, can be supportive. We can have like a plan so that it's articulated at the time that we need it. And just also have another support person.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I mean, it really is. So many people just still today just have no idea what a doula does and what do I need that for, or just like, oh, look, me and my partner, we don't want to do this together. It's a very private event. And even though it's like you're going to meet lots and lots of staff at the hospital that are not going to know you. So yeah, it was such an honor to just get to speak to you two before and just to be able to go through that interview process, because yeah, it feels like you kind of know already from the get-go. You're like, yeah, I think we clicked. But yeah, I was so honored to be welcomed on board. And you were planning a hospital birth.
Yep.
Also, were you preparing for this birth? What kinds of things were you doing? Was there anything particular?
I remember you and I having lots of conversations around pain management because I was terrified of the pain around that, and that like, especially like within the work that I was doing, I was like, I don't want fentanyl. Like, don't let them give me fentanyl. And obviously like fentanyl has like a bad rap and stuff like that too. So I just remember like doing what I could to breathe through things, like working on a little bit of stretches, working on just thinking about different positions that like I could take. You and I talked about like minimizing tearing because I didn't want to just like rip through my entire like pudendum. But it was a lot of like just kind of, for me it was like I didn't know what I didn't know how to ask for something that I didn't know how to anticipate it. I knew I didn't want a home birth because I'm like, they're like, I will have the drugs available if I need them, and if I don't need them, then no. And then like my back pain was just so much that I'm like, please give me all all the medications that you can give me. So that was the kind of my thought process too, that I was like, I was so terrified of the pain, and like now that I'm on the other side, that I'm just like, I am in awe of all of the women who give natural births, because like not only are you a massive badass and like have to have like a massive pain threshold to be able to do that, but like psychologically, like that is a whole nother game that like you have to be tapped into to be like, yep, I signed up for this and it's just part of the party. But that was not my party. That was not my party to have.
But you are also a massive badass, even though you're pain meds. And I feel like that's why I love having an array of stories, because still be able to look back at that experience and still be able to, I mean, we can get into it more, but that it can be somewhat positive, or, not traumatic, at least, I think are the biggest things as a doula coming in. Like, we just want to help you have the most positive birth possible. Like, we don't have an agenda. Like, you should have a certain type of birth, and birth is freaking magical no matter how you have your baby. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's a totally different experience. So I would love to hear, like, how did your labor start? Like, what were the signs? And yeah, bring me back.
So I was about a week late from my due date. And I think 2 days after I started going into labor was when they had like planned for an induction. And so it was probably about like 2:00, 3:00 in the morning. I woke up with like a little bit of like back cramps. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to get in the bath. Like, and I was like, this is weird. And it almost felt like I was having like period cramps, which duh, like it makes sense that that's what it would feel like. But like no one had ever like been like, Sarah, that's probably what it's gonna feel like. And I was like, oh, okay. So like period cramps are just like practice for like your body pushing out a baby. Good to know. So got into the bath, sat in the bath for maybe like an hour, went back to sleep. And probably around like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock that morning is when like it got to the point like I couldn't, it was just uncomfortable. And I was like texting you, I'm like, I think I'm having contractions. And my contractions at the most were always a minute and a half, 2 minutes apart. Like they were never longer than that. And I mostly felt them in my back. And of course, my mom was flying in from Vegas that day. So I remember it was one of those things where it's like we coordinated that like when Brian had to go pick up my mom, you would come over so I wouldn't be by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of like me sitting on the couch. There was a lot of like me standing against the walls. You gave so much counter pressure to my low back and it felt amazing. And like, I remember being like, damn, Allison's arms have to be like so sore and like so tapped out because just like every minute giving that squeeze to my hips, it felt really, really good. And I think maybe Brian and my mom got to our place by 11. And by that time I was just like, okay, like I want to try to go to the hospital. This is getting to me. Got to the hospital and I was only a half a centimeter dilated and I screamed fuck in the room because I knew they wouldn't take me in until I was like 3 centimeters dilated. And so the nurse at the time was like, we're just going to have you go home, take a bath. And I want to be like, I've already taken 3 baths today. She's like, just try to get as comfortable as possible. Like, and I was like, okay, whatever. So then I remember you and I just doing a lot of like breathing, meditation in a bath. I think I was in the bath for maybe an hour at that point. On all fours, doing what I could to just kind of like try to manage the pain. And I think maybe about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is terrible. By that time, my contractions were a minute, 45 seconds apart every single time. And thank God for the attending who let me in. And she was just like, I'm not supposed to give you pain meds yet, but obviously you're not handling this very well. And I was like, I'm not even going to be offended by that because I'm not. And she was like, yeah, we're going to get you comfortable. And I was like, thank God. And part of what made that like whole experience better too was that one of the nurses that I had worked at a skilled nursing facility was my L&D nurse and saw my name on the board, and told the nurse that was supposed to be our nurse. She's like, nope, I'm taking this person. So I was like, I remember when we got to the room, I was just in pain, walking around. I don't have my glasses on. I'm not giving a shit. Like, I just want someone to come in and put a fucking needle in my back so that I can feel better. And I just see this like tall, skinny, like shade of a person come in and she was like, Sarah? And I was like, Stephanie? And she was like, yeah, I'm going to be your nurse. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, can we please do something?
How dilated were you at this point? Like when we
not even 3 centimeters at this point. And that's why I'm like, thank God this woman, I think I was 2 centimeters at this point. And I think too, like in my mind, there were so many people that like never told me that like you can be in labor for like days. You can experience that for like hours and hours. And I think in my mind, I was like, this is going to happen like rapidly. It's going to be like a 5-hour thing. I'm going to give 2 pushes and then we're going to be done. Like, I don't know why that was the narrative that I told myself, but I think it was one of those things too, where like, that's the only stories that like my mom, your sister just slipped out, like, stuff like that. So I think it was like one of those things where it's just like I was hoping for the best, but not actually like realistically being like, nah, bitch, that's that's not likely. Um,
My gosh. Okay.
yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. No, but it's also like at that point, it's not about like you need to be remembering this as positive. And at that point, there was suffering. It's like I
Absolutely.
you, and that is why we have these incredible tools at the hospital to not need to suffer through the birth of our children. And that is why it was the absolute right call. You knew in that moment exactly what you needed. Nobody needed to tell you what you needed to do or how to do it. You had that intuition yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember I was so dehydrated, which I was like in shock of that too. And I was like, what do you mean? I've been drinking all day. And I was like, apparently not enough. Because I was just so hyper focused on the pain. Like it was just really hard for me to be able to get out of that mindset of just like, holy shit, like I've never experienced this before. And again, it was not necessarily like abdominal pain. It was all just like back pain for me and like back labor.
Mm.
So I remember when we got to the hospital, they gave me fentanyl, but it took them forever to be able to actually like put my IV in because I was so dehydrated that they had to have a nurse from like pediatrics come and try to find my veins because like I had been through two other phlebotomists, yeah,
Yeah.
to be able to come and like actually like insert the IV. And then like they're like, you're either blowing or you're rolling and we can't find you because you're so dehydrated. So, and it was like they couldn't give me the fentanyl until I had my IV in, and I was just like, just fucking make it stop. And I remember like us being like, can we have like laughing gas? Can we have something? And then the nurse was like, well, what is your intention? I was like, my intention is not to feel like shit anymore. And she's like, then we're gonna have to go an epidural. And I was like, let's fucking go. I mean, the fentanyl didn't even touch the pain that I was experienced too. So for me, it was just I had never experienced anything like that before. And like, not that I don't have the ability to kind of like imagine or like sympathize what like other people could be going through, but like for me, I have to be living that experience and I have to fully like immerse myself to be able to get like to conceptualize it. So kind of like what you and I were talking about, like, oh, I didn't know what I needed in the moment, or I didn't know what like parenting was actually going to be like until I got into it. And then I was like, holy shit, like this is way more intense than I thought it would be. So I'm very thankful that Stephanie was my L&D nurse. I'm very thankful that she advocated for me. I had never tasted something better than that shitty hospital like chicken broth that she had given me at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was just like, oh, this is magical. Game on. Like just in that Buddha position with the bed, just like sipping that broth. And I was like, yeah, this is the biz.
Because that was what it was all about, because after you got the epidural, we always are like, try and wait with epidural as long as possible, right? As much as like, but you were in kind of full blown labor, like your contractions were there, the surges were not going anywhere. And what it became about at that point is positioning is just, I don't know how often, but it was often that it was just supporting your position, like changing your position in the bed constantly to help Emmy come down. Because besides that, the epidural took well. You feel like, oh, it did the trick.
Oh yeah. I remember that I could actually like sleep. And thank God they waited to push Pitocin until after they gave me the epidural. And I remember Stephanie coming in and she was just like, okay, you're fully dilated if you want to start pushing. And I was just like, now? Like, I don't feel like, and retrospectively too, I've always wondered, I was like, okay, like, should I have waited? Like, that's something that always like comes to mind. And it was like, I remember she was like, we can start pushing because you're fully dilated. But like, I wasn't feeling any of the contractions like I was when I was actually like pushing through those 2 hours of like pushing and like active labor. So like part of me always wonders, like, did I try to get my baby into this world before like my body actually wanted me to do that?
I mean, just what you said just now. I mean, Stephanie was still there when you had your baby. Like it went very fast. Like it wasn't like I mean, your body was already doing it. Your body was ready. Everything was ready. And then it's just the back pain. It's a longer labor. It's a way harder labor when the babies are posterior. And that is why we were also like changing your position all the time, and that you got that incredible rest, because again, it's very hard to rest at that trimester anyway. But you were really like, your body, you were already doing it. And it was, I feel like when you got to the hospital too, like, and especially with that epidural, like you were able to relax and you felt safe. Now you had someone also that you had known before, and your body just relaxed in a way, and it was going to happen. So your body had already said it was ready when you started having those contractions in the middle of the night and everything.
Fair. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, okay. So what was pushing like when she's like, oh, we can start pushing now? What went through your mind? You're like, yeah, what was that experience?
It's like, okay, I'll give it a while. And of course, they were like, and Stephanie and I having the rapport that we had, she was like, just imagine like you have to take a shit and you're going to push like you have to take a dump. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember her being like, I knew you were going to be a good pusher. And then like, going back and just being like, yeah. But her telling me that like Emmy would just come forward and then slip back into the position. So we were making like just the most incremental pushes possible. I remember I, again, didn't expect to be pushing for 2 hours. That was like a shock to me. And it was like, I was exhausted and I was over it. And I remember the nurses being like, nope, put your butt down. Don't try to push until you're actually having a contraction. Like, work with your body, not like, don't try to force this thing that like, don't make it harder on yourself than it essentially needs to be. And I remember at one point just reaching down and I was like, oh, her head is actually like crowning. Okay. And I was like, I felt this like renewed sense of like, okay, I can do this. I just remember being insanely hot. Like, and then the nurse being like, yeah, you're getting a good workout. And I was like, that's not what you want to say to me right now. Like, of course, I know this. Like, I'm pouring sweat. I'm insanely warm. This room only goes down to 70 degrees. Why the did we not have something cooler than that? Like my partner at the time not holding my leg the way I wanted it to, and like the anger of that, and of just like, and I remember looking at the midwife and being like, can you just grab her head and tug? And she was like, no, we don't want to give her a brachial plexus injury. And I was like, okay, fair. But then it like, I expected when like she actually like came out of my body to have this almost like, this is a gross metaphor, but like when you like pop a zit or something and it has that like, I expected some sort of sensation like that when she actually came out, but like that was not didn't experience that. And then all of a sudden she was just like on my chest. And then it was just like, not stillness, because there's all this chaos going on around you. There was almost like this moment of just like, not calmness. I don't like, almost like I don't like, I can just be, if that makes sense. That like, I don't like, I did it. I don't have to worry about this anymore. I don't have to feel this anymore. I can just stop, and like my kid is on my chest. Like, and it was just one of those things, like it took me a while to kind of like I would say maybe 10-15 seconds to kind of like realize that like, holy shit, she's here. This is my kid. And then just breaking down into tears.
Oh, it was so beautiful, because it was also like, not many people love pushing, but you were just so just very, very clear on how over it you were. But
yeah.
Like when I look back at it, like from, because things can just like go so differently when you get the epidural, but for you it was like so dreamy. Like, I don't know, like out of all the people I've attended births with that have gotten the epidural, there are some that are just like, wow, that was the exact right thing for you. Like that was incredible, and just so, yeah, it just helped you have that positive experience, and also that you still have that oxytocin high when when you meet your baby, right? It's like, oh, Pitocin can disturb your hormones and you may not feel bonded. It's like all these things, but also at the same time, that realization of like, I did this and my baby's here. Oh, just wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I remember too that like I probably had 7 people and in my delivery room, because like obviously Kaiser had like a midwifery program, so like there was like students in the room, there was a doctor who was like in school, and she was the one that was like watching everything, and then there's Stephanie, and then there was you, and then there was Brian, and then there was like other nurses coming in. And at that point I was like, I just don't give a shit who sees my pussy on glass. Like I just need this baby out of me. And I remember this is like my very competitive nature, that the midwife basically was like, the girl next door has also been pushing for 2 hours. So there's kind of this competition to see who's going to like have their kid first. And I was like, ooh, game on, lady. Like I'm going to win kind of thing. And it just gave me that extra, like, let's go, to like dig deeper and just be like, okay, we're gonna freaking push.
yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I did have my kid before that other woman, so
Oh yeah, I'm sure you did. Of course you did. Oh, such an incredible story. And just Emmy also just being such just a trooper throughout that entire experience too. Like there was never any worry about that she's having decelerations or like anything. She was just smooth sailing too, like the whole time, like so strong. So
Yep.
strong.
She still is very strong-willed to this day. But also, like, I mean, you and I were talking about a little bit before we started recording that, like, I'm actually going through a divorce now. In that, like, granted, she's 4. She doesn't necessarily, like, really understand. Like, she understands that, like, mommy and daddy don't live together anymore. And she understands that, like, mommy and daddy are not together anymore. But just, like, how flexible and how she's just going with the role of things, with like transitioning from my house to his house, or when like I pick her up from daycare every day and then he comes and gets her, and like some days that transition is just really, really rough for her, but it was just like in the grand scheme of things, like she is just rolling with the punches and is just being a champ throughout all of this as much as she possibly can be, of like what makes sense in her 4-year-old brain. So she's still going with the flow as much as possible.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, so amazing. Well, how was, just to go back a little, because I definitely would like to dive into that whole story as well and all the things, but how was your immediate postpartum? How was it bringing this little human home? Like,
that first day was really, really rough. Backing up a little bit, like my milk never came in, and that was something that like was a really, really, really trying experience for me. So I remember trying to get Emmy to latch when I was in the hospital and just having like hickeys around my nipple and just like around my tit, and having the nurse come in and me being like, is this normal? And then the look on her face was like, I'm gonna go get the lactation consultant. And I was like, cool, not normal. And of course, like sleep deprived at this point, like just whatever haze that you're in. And the lactation consultant comes in and she's talking to me, and then it clicked that like she was the wife of a physical therapist that I used to work with. And so she's like giving me this education. And then I just looked at her and I was just like, oh my God, you're Tim's wife. And the look of horror on her face of like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, I used to work with Tim, stuff like that. So again, just like this weird, like Kevin Bacon like situation of working in like healthcare. And like her basically telling me that like Emmy had a tongue tie, which was going to make it even more difficult for her to latch, and her getting me set up with a lactation consultant, like but the hardest part was Emmy didn't latch for almost 16 hours after we took her home. And thank God my mom was with us, where my mom was like, she's got to be starving. And she was just crying. She was restless. Like, and it was to the point where my mom was just like, we just need to get something in her. And so she ended up going to like the 24-hour Winco that was like right down the street, and made her a bottle. And I think as like a newborn, she chugged 2 ounces because she was just so tired, and then just like crashed after that. And it was one of those things where it's like, yes, it's so simple to kind of put that together, that like she's a newborn, she hasn't eaten, she's not latching, that's what she needs. But like me and Brian not being able to kind of like connect those points in that moment of like, holy shit, no one ever like was like, you should probably just have some formula on board just in case like that's not an option for you. And so for the next almost 2 months, we had gone to 4 different lactation consultants. We were even doing this thing where like I would have to like tape this tube underneath my boob, and I would have to like match it with my nipple to try to like input formula in it. So it was almost like an IV drip of formula that like would get her to latch more, to try to pull more, which could potentially get me to produce milk. I was pumping, and I was like, I remember being like 2 months into it, and I was maybe getting a quarter of an ounce. Like, I mean, it was nothing. But me just feeling like I was a slave to my pumping machines, and like trying and trying and trying, like drinking the milk thistle tea, eating like the foods that are going to try to produce like your milk production, like doing whatever massages I could, like all of this stuff. And then just so exhausted, so sleep deprived, and also trying to do something that like my body was just telling me was not for me. And it wasn't until we went to the 4th lactation consultant that she was like, is it actually working for you and your partner that like you're bottle feeding? And I was like, yeah, it's insanely easier. Like, I don't have to worry about taping this thing to my tit at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting it just right, and then her screaming and her not latching. She's like, then do you even want to breastfeed at this point? And I was like, not really. And she was like, okay, then and it was like the first person who had given us permission that like, not that we needed it, because obviously we could have made that choice for ourselves. But again, you don't know what you don't know. And I had basically been fed this narrative from the lactation consultants before that of like, just keep trying and your body will kick in. Just keep trying, just keep trying. And it wasn't until like I said, the 4th one that she was like, a fed baby is the best baby. Like if it's not for you, then she's like, that's perfectly okay. She's like, there's even people who can breastfeed and they choose not to because like it's just too much for them. So at that point, it definitely felt like a weight had been lifted. And I remember like reaching out to you and you're like, oh my God, I could have helped with that. You should have told me. And it was just like, I didn't know. And so it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, like I'm underutilizing the supports that I have in this moment too. But just the 4th trimester was one of the hardest points I think I've ever been in my life. Not necessarily, I think I had some postpartum anxiety too that I didn't necessarily connect with at that point. I was terrified that Emmy was going to have SIDS. And so like just waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, be like, oh my God, is she breathing? And then just like listening for her breathing, and then me being able to like calm back down. She was a really noisy baby too. So like in her sleep, she'd be like, and that would wake me up. And then I'd be like, oh my God. And then your anxiety kicks in, and then like, obviously like your fight or flight response. And then I'm like, cool. Now I'm like wide awake, but I'm exhausted. So it was like a mixture of like the pressure to breastfeed, not knowing how to control my emotions, being terrified that this thing that I absolutely love is going to just suddenly die on me, having postpartum depression, not having the support that I needed from a partner because my partner was also going through a lot of his own shit that he was not able to articulate in that moment. And it was just, at times, it just felt like it was like me and Emmy against the world. And I just remember being in the shower, just sobbing, just absolutely sobbing, being like, is this going to be my life? Mm-hmm. And then also in the back of my head being like, I have 3 months to get this shit like locked down and in a routine because I have to go to work because I'm also like the primary breadwinner for my family. And just like remember like just it's and telling myself that like it's temporary. And like I had a lot of friends who were like, no, it sucks. It sucks. And just almost like being able to use that like raw and truthful language again, like around the experience that you're having, because like a lot of the stuff I had seen or read or listened to was just like, it's just so magical having your baby. Yes, it is magical. And like, there's a flip side of that coin that like, it's work. It is work. But then you also have these moments of like holding your kid and being like, this is it. Like, this is taking care of an infant. Like, all you do is sleep, eat, and shit. Like, should I be doing more in this situation? But like, I I think the 4th trimester was one of the reasons that I have only one child. Because like, it was not a great experience for me. And I wish I knew what I knew now to be able to kind of like help support me through that process too. But like, we had a really good support system of friends. We had a really good support system of like family that just to be able to talk to. We had gone through couples therapy in preparation for the roles and everything that was going to change with us having a kid. And we had saved some of our couple therapy sessions until after we were postpartum to be able to like kind of continue to talk through with another person of like how to be supportive in that process too. So obviously we made it through it. I just remember things getting easier incrementally and slowly, and then there just being kind of dips, and then it coming back up, and then things getting better, and then there being dips. And there's just so many changes that are happening like developmentally with like newborns too, that like you just feel like once you got the hang of it, like then all of a sudden something changes and you're just like, I just like, here we go again, like ground zero, learning something. Like, oh, now you can like roll over. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, now you can sit up. Oh, okay. Now you're mobile, son of a bitch. Like, now we need to protect all the things that we didn't need to protect, because now you're going to grab them and throw them on the ground and bite them. Cool.
Oh, Sara, I just want to go back and hug her. Like I hope that you can do that too. Like just really like go back and just know what a hard job that was, and that it makes us stronger, but it is really, really hard in the moment. And I feel like, being at the beginning of my journey as a doula, like, and then now after like 125 families, I'm like, how could I have been a better doula? How could I have showed up more? Because it's really like what it looked like from the beginning to the end. It's so hard to know what someone's needs are, and it's so hard to say what you need as well.
Absolutely.
But I also feel like it's that process of growth and expansion and learning yourself and learning what triggers you. And I think it was huge investment that you two did couples therapy before and also saved some sessions for afterwards. I think that that's something that everyone should probably be doing, because that identity shift is kind of that slap in the face of like, nobody can prepare you for it, because you don't know what's going to be coming up for you. And It's really, really hard. And I would love to know just kind of what continued on into after postpartum and you going back to work and finding that balance with it all. Like, how did you make it all work up until like now?
Yeah. Um, we were lucky because Brian was working from home at the time. So it was one of those things where like he could stay home with Emmy and basically do like the newborn care after I went back to work. And so he would like wake up with her and do like morning daytime. And then when I got home, I was basically on for like mother shift. And so I would put her down at night and like do all of that stuff, play with her, do her care, whatever. And so we had been doing that for a really long time. And then obviously as she got older and older, it got to the point where like he couldn't have his meetings with her because like she's talking and she's like interrupting these Zoom meetings. So we were able to wait until she was a year and a half to put her in daycare. And the daycare that we found was like in our neighborhood. And absolutely loved that daycare. They treated her like family. And like we would even see like her and her daughter in the grocery store and like just the surprise and just like the amount of love of like them being like, hey, and both of them just like super excited to see her. It was awesome. And it also gave Brian some of that downtime too. Because he does not handle stress super well. And for him, he doesn't necessarily have the words to articulate what's going on. He has this like outward presentation that you can tell that something's going on, but it doesn't connect with him in the moment. And so I think that was part of his struggle with like the reparenting that had to happen and managing this new, I mean, it's a stressor. Kids are a stressor, of just the being overwhelmed in a different way that you didn't know that you were going to constantly be overwhelmed of like, oh, now I have to be on alert of like, what did you get into? What do you have access to? What are you doing? I can't see you. Are you going to fall down the stairs? Like, did I close the baby gate? You know, like just this constant like checklist of making sure that like kiddo's okay kind of thing. So once Emmy was in daycare, I feel like our relationship got a little bit better because like both of us had that time away from her to be able to just kind of decompress, but also focus on what we needed to as far as like our roles in our careers. And then it was kind of one of those things where like he was still working from home until last year. What year is this? 2025. Yeah. He was working from home until then. So he would always do like the morning shift. And then I would do like the nighttime shift of like being able to put her down. And then we realized that like, and I kind of accommodated my schedule that like I was going to be the one that would take her to school in the morning. Brian could be the one that like does the nighttime stuff because we realized I'm a morning person. He is absolutely not a morning person. Like if he could sleep until 10 o'clock every morning, he would. And then like there's me at 7 o'clock being like, what's up, world? So I was like, why are we not working with our own like biology of being able to like care for her? Because I mean, it got to the point where I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work, to be home by 3 so that I could pick her up. And then I was like crashing on the couch at like 6 o'clock at night. But then I had to like put her to bed and do like the bedtime stuff. And it was just like, I was just dragging ass. And so like he and I were just like, how can we make this better? So we decided to kind of switch the AM PM shift when it came to that. And it worked for a little while until like, I mean, I just have a really demanding job and sometimes I have to work later than I would like. And so I had fixed my schedule to going in at like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I would work until 5:30, but there would be sometimes that I wasn't even coming home until 6:30. And just kind of like some of that building resentment with him feeling like he was taking on the majority of the parenting role and like the childcare role, and then me doing more of the traditional breadwinner stuff, and not necessarily seeing the sacrifice that the other person is making within that. Um, and then when she turned 3.5, we ended up transitioning her to a Montessori, because she kind of aged out of the daycare. So ended up putting her in a Montessori that's like right down the street from us, and of course she like blossomed, and she's the most social kid ever and has like no qualms about meeting new friends. And that kind of just like more solidified that, like, okay, so like around that time too, like Brian got a new job. He had to actually go into the office, and so his schedule's a little bit more fixed. Whereas my schedule's a little bit more flexible. So it's like, I always like, we decided that like, this was of course around the time that like we are separating and I'm looking at moving out of the house. And so it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I will do the pickup shift every single day if you do the morning shift, because if I have to go into work at 6:30 and daycare doesn't open until 8, like I can't squish my schedule. I still have to be able to provide. So for us, just trying to figure out the inner workings of the timing and who was going to take what. So, and then like it happened that like with me moving here, I was able to work from home. So I'm going to be going back into the office. So it's like one of those things that now she's going to a different preschool. So it's just like, again, those tides are changing. She's gotten used to spending a week at dad's and then spending a week at mom's. But it's like when she is at her dad's, I still get to see her every day because I still pick her up from school. And that when she's with me, since her preschool is like right down the street, there would be no point in me having Brian take her. And so it's just like, I'll just take her for right now kind of stuff. So still being able to get as much time as possible within that shift, and also enjoying the space that I have of being able to kind of like, now I'm by myself, and kind of reconnecting with that part of like, I actually do value my alone time and like my quiet time. Because a lot of through my relationship and a lot of through having Emmy is that I feel like I lost a lot of my like self-autonomy within that. I love working out. I love doing yoga. And I feel like I wasn't necessarily allowed to do those things because there was resentment for me taking time for myself, because that meant that I was putting more childcare responsibility onto my partner, and my partner saw it as me not pulling my weight. And I saw it as, I need this space so that I can show up for my partner and I can show up for my kid in the best way possible. So now that it's like we have the week on, the week off, like I still get to be able to do the yoga. I still get to be able to have the time that I need to exercise. Like just being able to go to a grocery store and take your time at a grocery store without your 4-year-old being like, mommy, this, and like going and touching everything, like, is a blessing. Like, I enjoy going to the grocery store without my kid very, very much. And I enjoy going to the grocery store with my kid. But it's like one of those things where it's like, if I want to be able to take my time, I now actually have that time. And so I'm not saying that like, I mean, for me, being able to separate from my partner and going through a divorce was definitely a positive thing, because like now I'm actually getting some of that like self-care that I was missing for so long. And also realizing that like I do honor my individuality, and that like my sole role is not necessarily being a mom. But also that like I need to take care of myself, and I need to understand, like you were saying, triggers, and understanding like the things that are going to make me freak out when I hear one more mommy. That has nothing to do with that one more mommy. It has everything else to do with like all the other shit that I'm handling. But also trying to provide myself with the grace and compassion that like there's no such thing as perfect parenting. I could read as many books as I want. I could listen to as many podcasts as I want. That like this is a process. And for me growing up, the repair after like a parent and a kid had a tiff was non-existent. So like negative emotions were very much something that you need to go in your room and you need to handle by yourself. And so me being conscious of like, I don't want my kid to grow up with the same mentality, and me having to sit in that discomfort of when she is upset, but just allowing her that space of like, and me being like, do you need space or do you want mommy to be here kind of thing? And also like acknowledging that like, yep, it feels icky and it's uncomfortable, but like this is the process of reparenting, not just for me, but like also making sure that like I don't continue the behaviors that I don't think are emotionally healthy for her. So it has been an amalgamation of things. And if someone would have told me this is where I would be 4 years down the road from when I gave birth, like I don't think I would have believed it.
Oh, wow, Sara. Oh gosh, it's just it's heartwarming and refreshing, and I just feel like you're just so brave to touch on all these things because this is the reality of life. And like you're saying, there is no perfect parent there, that doesn't exist. And that you found your strength again, and that postpartum, you know, just prioritizing yourself. It's so inspiring, and none of it could have been easy. I'm sure it's still not easy, but that you get that self-care is vital. I mean, it's like when mom feels good and has done her self-care, the whole family feels good. You know, it is one of those things that is so important, and it's the reality of so many families. And I am just so grateful for you sharing all of that. And it's hard, it's really hard, but I love that, you know, you're showing up emotionally, because there is that generational trauma, I feel like, that we on like our generation is having to deal with because of how we were raised. Like and me just being pregnant right now, like me just being with my mom and that she's going to be helping.
Yeah.
Already there's so much that's triggering and so much that's there, and that like when they're set in their ways and like this is the way we did it back then, it's like, yeah, and that's definitely not how we're going to do it. It's hard, but it's also like a part of that. It takes so much more to heal that generational like trauma and childhood and like how we were raised and into emotionally well-being humans. I mean, it takes a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice, and you're just proof of, you know, prioritizing that for Emmy. And I think it's just so admirable, and just so proud of how far you've come.
Thank you. What has also helped, I mean, obviously like the exercise, taking time, like just managing my stress, but like Zoloft does the trick for me too. Like there were times where like when she was a kid that I remember just being so enraged so quickly that it scared the shit out of me, that it was like I found myself like being too rough with her because I was so angry. Like I never hit her. I never did anything like that. But I was just like, I remember telling my therapist, like, I'm afraid of my reactions towards this kid. And it's like, this is bad. And it took me a while to be able to like even consider the potential of being medicated, because like obviously like I'm a mental health OT. Like I see what it like I see that like I'm managing just fine, and like there's those people need medications because like they have a dysfunction with them, that, you know, like all of this other shit. And then I'm just like, I got on my Zoloft and I was like, where has this been for the past 5 years? Because this is phenomenal. and I understand that like people taking medications is their own personal journey, and I would never push that upon like anyone. But at the same time, like I very much was that person that was like, it's okay for you to take medications, but I don't think I need them. And it just lowering my or increasing my tolerance, basically. Like I no longer have this really short ceiling of like, ooh, child, I'm gonna lose my shit on you. Which granted, if you have 5 meltdowns in an hour and a half when all I'm trying to do is get you dressed so you can go to school so that I can go to my meeting. Yes, I am overwhelmed. Yes, I'm just like, oh my God. But I'm not responding in the way that I was before. And I have the ability to be like, Sarah, you're the adult. Yes. Like she's experiencing emotions that she doesn't necessarily know how to vocalize or how to manage that. And I think it was the day that I did like my Instagram stories that it was like she had literally 4 different meltdowns in an hour and a half. And it was because I made her the wrong pancake. Then I made her the right pancake, and then I cut that pancake wrong. And then she wanted to wear one of my tank tops as a dress, but her nipples were hanging out. And I just asked her to put a shirt on underneath it so she could wear it as a dress. And then I picked the wrong shoes out. You know, it was just one of those things where it was just like, oh my God, just brush your fucking teeth. Like, just brush your fucking teeth. Like I've asked you 15 times, just brush your teeth. You're not going to be the stinky kid at school. Like just brush, like if you can't brush your teeth, I will brush them for you kind of thing. And just being at my capacity that morning of just like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then of course, like she goes to school, things are fine. And then that afternoon, I'm just like, oh my God, I love you, miss you so much. How was school?
But it's got to be so hard to sit with those emotions, you know, and just allowing them, just being present and just allowing her to have all those feelings, the way that we're taught of like, you just have to sit with them and you like, and that it reflects back on like you were saying before, like it's my stuff, it's my past that's triggering me, not necessarily she's just being a normal 4-year-old, but that just sitting with that emotion, and that is like, it's got to be the hardest thing ever. I mean, it's got to be so yeah, I don't know, just incredibly triggering. I mean,
Yeah.
and I feel so grateful to hear all this, because I feel like we don't talk about postpartum enough and those transitions and everything. So just feeling like that is coming my way, all these experiences, because they are like, there's no way you're going to get around tantrums and all of these like, you know, just challenging behaviors. And so I just feel like it's so refreshing to hear just the honesty around it and the rawness and the realness that you always bring to your stories. It just like makes my day. I'm just like, Sarah, you're just makes my day, because we need more rawness and realness about all of these things so that we can help each other through them and normalize them, that it's normal to feel this way, and that it's hard, and that it's challenging, and that it sucks, and that we're not always going to be the perfect parent. And I'm just so grateful for you just being the realness and badass that you are.
Yeah. I mean, there's most of the time that I'm just like, okay, we can, I just, and then there's times where I'm just like, mommy needs space. And then I like go into my bedroom, and then like 5 minutes later, you hear the little pitter patter of her coming, and then just jumping on. Like, it's the way that I know that it's working is that my kid, my 4-year-old, and I find this truly amazing, because like, I don't think I had the capacity to do this when I was 4. She will come up to me and give me a hug, and she will say, "Mommy, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening." And she will actually apologize. And I know that it's me modeling the, I'm sorry that mommy got mad at you. Mommy was frustrated because of this, and it's not okay that mommy took that out on you. And those things were never said to me as a kid. It was always, I'm going to get mad. I'm going to go away and then we're going to pretend like it never happened and we're not going to talk about it. Like I said, there was no repair. And it's one of these things where like both her and I are repairing and resolving quicker. And it's, again, not about the perfection. It's about like, how do I come back and rebuild that relationship with my daughter? And we can now get to the point where I'm like, Emmy, what would make me stop loving you? And she knows the answer is nothing.
Mm.
And she can sit there and say nothing. And so now it's like to the point where it's like, okay, and that means that when mommy's mad at you, it doesn't mean she stops loving you. Those two things exist at the same time. And when mommy's mad at you, it's because mommy's frustrated. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you. And it doesn't mean that I like mommy says no, because I want you to be safe. And so having these, like, I think, especially like toddlers, like kids are more capable of understanding things than we give them credit for. And so being able to kind of like have these little like glimmers of, oh my God, like this parenting shit is working. Like I am getting through to my kid. Holy crap. Like it's just one of those times that like eventually on the 23rd or the 42nd time, like it's clicking. But also just being able to her be like, mommy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry I made you mad. And I was just like, it's part of the process, sweet girl. And you have nothing to apologize for. Like it's mommy's shit to handle and it's not your responsibility. Because I wish I would have had someone say that to me. So just being, I mean, she's a good kid. And it's going to be terrifying of how intense she's going to be when she's a teenager. But we won't worry about that right now.
One day at a time.
Seriously. I will say, 4-year-olds give, like when I posted on my stories of like, for friends who have kids, does this get better? And I definitely had camps of like, it doesn't, it just changes, suck it up, buttercup, to it absolutely gets better. And a lot of my friends are like actually like in the realm of like their daughters are starting to get their periods and like PMSing and like preteens. And I was like, give me a preteen any day. Like at least their frontal lobe is developed enough that I can have a logical conversation. Whereas like that's not going to happen when like my 4-year-old's limbic system is just coming online and she's just starting to feel emotions that she's never had before. And they are just blasting her in the face. And then it's just like, I put on YouTube. That's what you wanted. I did exactly what you wanted. And now you're having like, I don't know what you want, kid. Like, I'm just like, she doesn't know. She doesn't know. So it's like having also compassion for like, there's these two people having their internal processes at the same moment and that it's like colliding and then eventually it like, you give yourself that space and it clicks and they're like, oh, okay, this is what that was. So just trying to use those moments as like teachable moments as much as possible of like, okay, I lost my shit. That didn't feel good. I want to do better next time. How am I going to do better? Bitch, go breathe.
Yeah. Yes.
But also a trick. For some reason, I love looking at Emmy's hands. Like they are just so tiny and they are like, I don't know what it is about like looking at her hands that I'm just like, you're part of me. I made you. Like, you're just like, if your hands fit in my, like, if the actual hand fits just in my palm, then it kind of just like puts it into perspective of how little she is. And that, like, am I having unrealistic expectations for my kid at that point? And then, like, just looking at her hands and touching her hands, I'm probably also giving myself some oxytocin at that point too. But like me just grabbing her, like gently grabbing her hand and just looking at it, it just kind of just lowers that threshold for me. So just being able to be like, let me see your hand. Mommy needs your hand. Is just like a point of like pause and a point of like reshift when like things just get really fucking difficult in that moment.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love because it's like more tools. Like, what is your tool? And everyone's gonna find their tool. But I love that reminder of not having expectations on this little human, but also, yeah, that you have that need of like, I know when I need to go breathe. And that she can also help with just lowering that adrenaline for you is, there's no more powerful bond than this little child coming through. And you just touched on something so beautiful, that, that coming back around when you're frustrated and apologizing. Because I agree, it's nothing I ever got either. It was like, yeah, time out. And like, we're never going to talk about it again. Or like, you have so much within you that you need to process and that you weren't ever able to process. And it's just so deep, and I love going deep and to all these places, but it's so much healing that we are having to do. And I think that's just a really important point that you brought up, that coming back around and apologizing, that repair is such an incredible reminder to all new parents out there, because you're just amazing, Sara, and I love you so much, and I'm just so glad that we had like our paths crossed in this universe. Like, it's just, I can't believe it's been 4 years, but I'm so glad that you were willing to do this and just be so raw with all of this. It's just, you have no idea how much it means for me and how much it's helping me now, like even more with preparing, and how many more people you help every day, by being the real person that you are. You're just an incredible inspiration. And I just am so grateful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's so sweet. And I'm looking forward to hearing your stories and your experience.
Oh God.
And if I can ever return all the help that you gave me, like, you're just one Instagram away.
I will be leaning on you for sure. And it's also just being realness on Instagram, and not just everything's just perfect. I just want to reflect more of the realness. So thank you for just being brave and being just so amazing. So thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on, or anything at all any other incredible advice? You've already given so much, but anything else that you would like to say to new parents out there?
But like, use your supports. Like, there's so many people that were like, do you want me just to come over and do your laundry? And I was just like, no, we got it. And I just kind of like poo-pooed it. And yes, absolutely. Like, have people come over and hold your baby so you can take a nap with your partner. Like if you have friends that are willing to come over and do your household chores, or just bring you groceries, or just spend time with you, like, take advantage of all of those resources that you absolutely have. Because I know for me, it was like, I don't want to push my burden of having a child onto like friends, and like, that's not their responsibility to come and do that. But if they truly are in your corner, if they're truly your friends, they want to be able to show up for you in those capacities. And it truly, I mean, it's cliche, but it truly takes a village. Like, the amount of guilt that I would even have of asking a friend to watch Emmy so that like Brian and I could go on a date, or that we could go like to a concert or something like that. It felt like I was imposing on them, because it was like, it wasn't their choice to have this kid. Like, but it was like, your friends want to be able to connect with your kid, because like they see your kid as like niece nephew kind of status. So like, and even just having conversations with your friends of like, so that we're on the same page, like, would you be cool if I asked you for this? Like, just clearing those expectations, and just kind of like, you are not a burden, and people who don't have kids will never understand what you're going through. And even the people who have had kids can they can kind of get a gist, but like every single story is different, and every single process is different. but like just lean on your supports as much as you possibly can. And if you don't have supports, find some. Like there's ways to be able to kind of reach out and make those connections, whether it's like new parenting groups or, you know, just like mom meetups or going to the park and like meeting a mom that will just listen. It makes a huge difference. So you're not a burden. Ask for what you need. And if people give you shit about it, forget those people.
Yes. Oh, wow. Love it so much. Thank you so much again, Sara, for taking the time, sharing your incredible story. Yeah, I will keep you posted on everything else. But other than that, just give Emmy the biggest hug from me. And Doula baby, I'm just, and yeah, I can't wait to see all the places you go from here.
Thank you.